President Trump with Senators John Barrasso, left, and Mitch McConnell, right, the majority leader, before attending a meeting on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. Tom BrennerThe New York Times, Washington. When Senate Republicans entered the final stages of the healthcare push earlier this year, it was clearly on its last legs. At least two senators had made it known that they had no real intention of voting to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and Republican leaders were casting about for something, anything, that could get 50 votes. Now, as their tax bill reaches the homestretch, Republicans are in tantalizing reach of their first real legislative success of the Trump era. The Senate is expected on Wednesday to vote to formally take legislation that would cut taxes by as much as $1.5 trillion over 10 years, remake the corporate tax code, and effect large changes to individual taxation. The routine procedural vote, so fraught during the healthcare debate, will begin an amendment process that should end in the bill's passage by Friday. And this time, Senate Republicans approach the finish line in a fundamentally different posture: confident, cooperative, even cocky. "It's like night and day," said Senator John Kennedy, Republican of Louisiana. At this point in the healthcare debate, people were walking out and talking about each other's mamas and getting mad, and it just wasn't healthy, it wasn't productive. It was like a bunch of kids in the back of a minivan. "This time," he continued, "it's very constructive and we're trying to make a good bill better, and everybody's in good faith." Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, did not commit to voting for the bill but said that she was making progress on the issues that mattered most to her. Tom BrennerThe New York Times. The story of the tax legislation is in small part about lessons learned, and in large part about doing what Republicans do best. While most Republicans had made the repeal of the Affordable Care Act a 7-year mantra, a few simply had no interest in deep cuts to Medicaid and rolling back insurance coverage that had finally given struggling constituents a measure of security. But lowering taxes is, at heart, what makes a Republican a Republican. The senators who brought down their party's push to repeal the Affordable Care Act do not appear eager to kill the party's last and only hope for a legislative accomplishment this year. And for all their posturing, naysayers on the particular tax bill pending before the Senate have pressed for a way forward. "It's one of those things that's hard to articulate, but the mood is very different," said Senator James E. Risch, Republican of Idaho. "People really want to get to yes, hurdles do remain, and the effort to satisfy some reluctant senators could anger other senators who like the bill as it is." About half a dozen Republicans, including Senators Ron Johnson of Wisconsin and Bob Corker of Tennessee, have expressed various degrees of misgivings about the tax bill, like the way it treats small businesses and its effect on an already large and growing budget deficit. But the differences between the health and tax debates have been striking. President Trump, who was largely disengaged from the health bill debate, he called the House's version of repeal mean, after celebrating its passage in the Rose Garden, has shown deeper interest in the tax overhaul. During a lunch with Senate Republicans on Tuesday, he got pretty deep in the weeds, Mr. Risch said. From left, Senators Ron Johnson, Bob Corker and David Perdue during a Senate Budget Committee hearing on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. Al Drago for The New York Times. Another big difference: unlike the tax measure, the health bill did not go through what the Senate calls regular order, with the formal bill drafting in the relevant committees. That created a kind of free-for-all atmosphere, in which senators who have little expertise in healthcare fancied themselves experts and put forth proposals that were destined to fail, said Senator Roy Blunt, Republican of Missouri. "I think there's a reason you have these committees of expertise," Mr. Blunt said. "A lot of the questions that would never have been answered if you had gone through the outrageous process we went through on healthcare can get answered, because the people who have been working on it know the answers." A number of senators are now in discussion with party leaders over how to tweak the bill to address their concerns. Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, who helped doom the healthcare measure, received assurances from Mr. Trump that he would back a provision to make $10,000 of local property taxes deductible, as she has requested, and that he would support legislation to stabilize health insurance markets. "I have not made a commitment, Ms. Collins said after Tuesday's lunch, but I am happy to report that I am making progress on the issues that matter most to me." Another senator who voted no on the health bill, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, was given good reason to vote in favor of the tax bill. Under arcane Senate rules, the tax legislation has been merged with a measure to open up the state's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to oil and gas drilling, a goal that dates to when Ms. Murkowski's father, Frank, was in the Senate 2 decades ago. But perhaps the biggest difference is that, having failed to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Republicans feel intense pressure to pass the tax measure, lest they go home to their constituents empty-handed. And for Republicans, cutting taxes is simply easier than just about any other legislative task.